session 51, and today we will finish with Exodus 20. I just want to read to you again verse 20 of Exodus 20. And Moses said to the people, "Do not fear, for Elohim is only coming to test you, so that his fear may be before your faces, so that you don't sin." Remember, the people stood far off. They couldn't listen to Yahuwah's voice any longer. It was only Moses who had the desire to hear God's voice, and who didn't let the fear of the thunder and the lightning keep him away from God. And this is also something we need to learn from our forefathers, from the tribes of Israel around the mountain, because this day was Shavuot. And for you guys that haven't done the Pentecost study on the Two Trees YouTube, please see if you can get to do that. If you need to get the link to that, just visit the website twotreesinthegarden.co.za and follow the YouTube link. Because to understand what happened on this very first Shavuot, how God's Ruach was just an overpowering thunder, and the sound of his voice, the sound of the breath that came out of his mouth was loud, yes. It was loud and it was difficult, and it did break the cedars. It was so powerful. But that very same Ruach came as flames of fire and landed on the heads of the disciples in the book of Acts, which is called Pentecost. It's just a Greek name for the Hebrew word Shavuot. And that same Ruach, as we saw in the life of Elijah, God came in a thunderstorm, and he came in an earthquake, and he came in a roaring wind. And then at the end, it was the soft, still voice that spoke to Elijah, just to show God's power in all these things. But when we endure the difficult things that he sometimes speaks to us, that sounds like thunder, that we want to stand far away and we don't want to listen, if we can just endure through that, and like Jacob, we wrestle with God at the Jabbok River, we wrestle through the night, then we will start hearing that very same Ruach in a still small voice. Because God is asking you today, Jeremiah 6 verse 10, "To whom shall I speak? And to whom will I give my warning that they will listen? Behold, your ears are uncircumcised, so you cannot hear. Behold, the word of Yahuwah is unto you a reproach. You have no delight in it." And this is what can be said of the children of Israel around the mountain. If only they could hear what God was saying. He said to them, "I am Yahuwah, your Elohim, who brought you out of Egypt." They should have said, "Yes, you are. You brought us up out of Egypt." Instead, they stood far away from the mountain because it was just too much for them. Matthew 15 verse 8, Yeshua complains about the same thing, because he is the face of God, the voice of God that was speaking here at the mountain. And since the book of Isaiah, God has been complaining, and Yeshua confirms this complaint. He says, "This people draws near unto me only with their mouths, and they try and honor me only with their lips, but their hearts are far from me," just as Israel was standing far from the mountain. Isaiah 29, 13 and 14, "Wherefore Yahuwah said, Forasmuch as this people draw near to me with their mouth, and with their lips honor me, but they have removed their hearts far from me, and their fear toward me is taught by the traditions of men." God complains in the Old Testament that his people is trying to serve him with all sorts of doctrines and ideas of God that other men have taught them. And Yeshua complains about the very same thing in the New Testament. You are in vain worshiping me, trying to worship me with the traditions of men, because we don't know this God out of his mouth. We are following far away from the mountain, far away from his thunderous voice. We are worshiping him in the way that somebody else has taught us. Both Old and New Testament, both since the beginning all the way up to now. And this is where God distinguishes between people, those who have their ears circumcised. And is that easy? Because he says your ears are uncircumcised and that's why you can't hear me. But is it nice to have your ears circumcised? I mean, the very next thing that we are going to discuss tomorrow in Exodus 21 is about the bondservant. And I'm going to refer back to this because listen to this now. When it comes to the bondservant, he chooses his master above his freedom. And the sign that he has chosen his master above his freedom is that his ear gets cut by a knife. Listen to this. This is the bondservant. Yeshua says in the book of Revelation, these revelations have not been written for the world. It's written for the bond servants of God. The people who's willing to endure the thunderous voice at the mountain. Who is willing to give their ear, to be cut, to be circumcised by this word, the two-edged sword. Those are the people that can come close and that can listen and that starts to learn how to worship God, not with traditions of men. Continue Isaiah 29:14. Therefore, behold, because of this, because of what? Because your heart is far removed from me, because you are trying to worship me with traditions of men, because of this, behold, I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people. What is this marvelous work that Jehovah is going to do among his people? I will proceed to do a marvelous work among this people, even a marvelous work and a wonder. For the wisdom of their wise men, the men that's teaching them all these other traditions, their wisdom shall perish. And the understanding of their prudent men shall be hidden. So Israel, and that includes you and me and everyone who wants to be grafted back into the olive tree, that don't really understand how to honor God, and we still only maybe honoring him with our lips only and not with our heart. We are standing far away. Our ears are not circumcised. He says, don't worry, I will do a marvelous work. I will work marvelously under you, amongst you, so that I can bring you back into my everlasting covenant. All right, so let's ask the Bible, God, please tell us, what is this marvelous work that you are doing for these people? Psalm 105, verse 5 to 10. Remember his marvelous works that he has done. Remember his wonders, for instance, in creation, for instance, in Egypt. Remember the judgments of his mouth. Remember, O you seed of Abraham, his servant, and you children of Jacob, his chosen ones. He's not choosing pagan nations. Anybody from the pagan nations come into the children of Jacob, under the 10 lost tribes scattered all over the world. This is his people that he's chosen. This is the people that he's trying to teach. And this will be the people with the seed of Abraham in them that will eventually turn their ears back to God. He says in verse 7, He is Yahuwah our Elohim, and his judgments are in all the earth. Remember verse 5 said, remember his marvelous works. Remember his judgments that are in all the earth. And his other marvelous work is he has remembered his covenant forever, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations. Do you remember the commandment says that your iniquity will come unto the third and fourth generation, but his mercy will be to them that obey him unto 1,000 generations. That is part of this marvelous work that he's doing to a people that has forgotten him for 1,000 generations. He has remembered his covenant, the covenant he made with Abram, and the oath he made unto Isaac. Verse 10, and he confirmed the same covenant unto Jacob for a law. This covenant that I will be your God, and you will be my people, and I will take you out of Egypt and out of the land of Ur, and I'll take you to the promised land, and you will tabernacle with me forever if you obey my voice. That covenant he has confirmed to Jacob for a law. Jacob's name was changed to Israel. And he says it. He confirms unto Jacob for a law and unto Israel for an everlasting covenant. Listen to this now. He says in Isaiah 29, you uncircumcised people that is far removed from me, that's worshipping me with traditions of men, I will do a marvelous work among you. Remember my marvelous works, my wonders, my judgments, my law, and my covenant. Because the marvelous work that he is doing under these kind of people, this people of Abraham that has forgotten him, his marvelous work is that he remembers his covenant. And he is doing this marvelous work in you and in me. Because not traditions of men is teaching us his covenant now. He himself, verse by verse, out of Genesis, out of the book of Exodus, is teaching you this covenant so that you, as a bondservant, will come close to the mountain, choose your master above your own freedom, give your ear so that it can be cut, and you can wear the sign of circumcision in the flesh, which God himself says means nothing if your heart is not circumcised. So don't draw near to me with your mouth only. Draw near to me with your heart. Because if you can stand under the thunderous voice of God at the mountain to receive his Torah, and to listen to his covenant, and to accept his marriage proposal, then your heart is circumcised. It's soft. It's not rebellious. And then he wants you to wear that physical sign of the covenant, which makes you a bondservant. This covenant he made so long ago, but we broke it, remember. He says in Jeremiah 31, I made a covenant with you, but you broke it. And therefore I will have to make a new covenant with you. His word became flesh to take that death penalty. Since the Garden of Eden, since we first transgressed his covenant, since the very first sin, he came to take that death penalty on himself. And now, that same word, which is that same covenant, which proceeded from the mouth of God at the mountain, and long before the mountain, it proceeded from his mouth to Noah, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, Ephraim. That word has been given to us so that we can also remember the covenant, so that we can turn back to him, so that we can draw near to him. This is the marvelous work that he is doing to a people that says they fear him too much and they stand far away. He wants us to draw near to me, and I will draw near to you. Not to stand far away from the mountain when he is speaking to us, but to draw near, not with our lips only, but with our whole heart and our being and all our strength. Because that is what the greatest commandment is all about. Love him with your whole heart and your being and your strength. But before he says that, he says, Shema. Listen, O Israel. Yahuwah, Eloheinu Yahuwah Echad. This is who I am. I am that one that remembers the marvelous covenant that I have made. I am that one who walks through the sacrifice system so that you can return to the covenant, if only you will have your ears and your hearts circumcised, and if only you will remember my marvelous judgments and return to me. Isn't this amazing? He is doing this work. We didn't wake up one morning and say, I want to start studying the Torah. That sounds interesting. We didn't do that. He is the one. He is the good shepherd that's looking for his lost sheep. And we hear his voice. We shema, we listen and obey. And we go through difficulties. And sometimes it's not comfortable. We don't want to hear this. We don't want to change our lives. But we have to stand through the fire, through the earthquake, through the thunder, through the lightning, and have our ears circumcised, and we just submit. We are your bondservant. And at the end of the day, what does he do with a woman who bends before him and washes his feet? She's the very first disciple. She's the prostitute that bends like a servant. And at the end of the day, she was the very first one that saw him when he got resurrected. That is the kind of reward that a good and faithful servant that listens to his master can accept and expect. All right, let's finish with Exodus 20. Verse 21 to the end, verse 26. And Jehovah said to, and the people stood far off, and Moses drew near to the thick darkness where Yahuwah was. And Yahuwah said to Moses, this you shall say to the children of Israel, you have seen that I have talked with you from the heavens. You shall not make besides me any other gods of silver, neither shall you make for yourself idols of gold. An altar of earth you shall make for me, and shall sacrifice there your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In all the places where I record my name, I will come to you, and I will bless you. And if you will make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of cut stone. For if you lift up your tool upon it, you have polluted my altar. Very important. This one is funny. I like this one. Neither shall you go up by the steps to my altar, that your nakedness be not discovered on it. This one is funny for me, because apparently there was no underwear in Israel. Because all over, all through the Bible, even since the very first altar that Noah or Cain and Abel, those altars they always made it with earthly stones. Because he says, an altar of earth you shall make for me. We were never allowed to cut the stones of which we made the altars. Very important. Listen to this. There's nothing modern or nothing human in the altar. It's all just natural stones that lies around that is being built up to make this altar. There's no human intervention, no human tool that is allowed upon this altar. Compare that to the Antichrist system. Because what did the Antichrist, the first shadow picture of the Antichrist, what did they use to build the Tower of Babel? Do you remember? Genesis 11 verse 3, and they said one to another, go, let us make ourselves bricks. Let's burn them thoroughly. And they made bricks of stone, and they used slime for mortar. Mortar, like a slimy cement kind of mixture, with which they then built these bricks, one on top of the other. Yahuwah's altar is made from stone. Natural rocks and stones from the earth. No human tool may come even close to it. It is to be natural, it is to be holy, it is to be without human hand. Right? And that is how Yeshua is. But the Antichrist, while Nimrod and all those who rebelled against God, they go with the very same idea, but they go in the direct opposite. Like Yeshua and God complained, you try and worship me with the traditions of man. So the whole Antichrist system, they built their altars and they built the Tower of Babel with their idea and with their genius bricks instead of using God's natural rocks and stones. Satan always does directly the opposite of God. Although he does the same thing, he does it in the direct opposite way. Do you remember in the Garden of Eden? He does the same thing, but he gives you just the opposite of what God said you must do. All pagan altars were made with brick. They were stones that were cut into squares. Human tools came from it, were used on it. They also learned how to burn bricks and how to make bricks. Some of the altars were cut out of rock. Sometimes when you go into these ancient sites, then you can see how they actually dug an altar out of the rock. That's not what God wants. They do the same thing. They build their own religion. Because the Tower of Babel is, yes, it was a physical building ancient years ago, but that is the foundation of the Babylon religion. They do the same thing. They build the religion with stone, so it looks like God's kingdom, but it's exactly the opposite. They build their own kingdom, their own worship system, but they do it in their own way, just like Satan suggested from the beginning. And so many times during the book of Kings and Chronicles, it says, and people did what they found good in their own heart. They followed their own heart, just like Satan suggested from the beginning. Okay, there's a long road ahead. And we're going to work systematically through the 613, the rest of the commandments that's lying ahead. A lot of the commandments, yes, is not relevant to you and me today. A lot of the commandments are only for priests or for kings or for agricultural practices. Maybe there's a couple of farmers that's listening and that will be, very interesting for them. But I mean, that's not relevant to us today on a physical level. All 613 commandments is not all relevant for every person. I mean, it's just logical. I hate it. Oh, I can just detest it when people say, oh, so you keep all the 613 commandments, hey? No, I don't, because I don't have a penis, so I can't be circumcised. And if you say that to a man, oh, you keep all the 630 commandments, eh? Then the man can reply, no, I don't have a vagina. I don't menstruate. But just, I'm sarcastic, I know. But it's just to show you that the 613 commandments, it's got such a negative, and that's exactly Satan's plan. This Tower of Babylon that's made by bricks and not by earthly stones. This is exactly what they offer to their God. Is they throw away all this old Jewish law that brings us under a curse. Oh, 613, it's too difficult, you can't do it. And I know Paul says, if you want to be holy, you must keep the whole law. You can't even break one of the laws. And so what? Yeshua came to teach us to fulfill the law, to show us that we can, if we love him. John 14:15, keep my commandments. If only my people will listen and obey my voice, I will bless them and heal their land. We can keep the commandments. I can't be circumcised. So, sorry, I can't keep that commandment. It doesn't mean I'm breaking it. It's not meant for me. And if you're a man, you can't menstruate. So, I think it's about, 20 or 21 commandments. That's got nothing to do with you. You can't keep them. You're not a damn woman. So are you breaking God's commandments because 21 of the commandments you can't do? No, it's not meant for you. But remember, again, as always, we are going to study all 613 commandments. Why? Because there's always huge amount of spiritual and prophetic significance in each one of these commandments. Even in the laws of Niddah. The laws of Niddah has got to do with menstruation. And now I don't want the men to go sit on the other side and say, oh, yeah, these laws have got nothing to do with me. No, it's got nothing to do with you on physical level, because you're not a woman and you don't menstruate. But you better listen. Because the spiritual significance of death in the blood, because menstruation is nothing else but an egg that died, and the body is expelling that egg so that the body can cleanse itself from the inside. Praise be to Yahuwah, who created a vagina and eierstokke, ovaries. in such a way that if the egg is not fertilized, the body expels it. Death comes out of a woman. That is why she's unclean for 7 days. There's nothing wrong with her. For heaven's sakes, look at the spiritual significance. Yeshua died, and his blood brought life. And the death of an egg inside each and every female reminds us of the death that came over us, but Yeshua took it in our place. He was born from a woman who never has had sex before, but she was menstruating. She was a young virgin. He came from the womb, and out of the womb he became life, and he was the life of the whole world. And he died, and he rose again, because every month Yahuwah gives a new egg to the woman inside of her. Oh, we're going to discuss the laws of Nida and all these things. And listen, even if it doesn't has any relevance on you, each and every commandment is going to just show the Messiah, the Messiah, the Messiah, the Messiah. That is why it's worth it to discuss this, and that is why I get so irritated when people say, oh, you stone your children. Maybe you must read that freaking verse before you accuse me. It just shows you that you don't know your Bible at all. But remember, I'm just relaying to you the way that I understand these 613 commandments of God, which he gave at the mountain to his people. The way that I have learned over the years, and the way in which I believe Abba is leading me. Maybe here and there I might have something wrong. Maybe here and there my interpretation is different to yours, or to something you've heard before. Maybe you've heard some other teachings of other people that has been on this road much longer than me. And maybe they interpret a specific commandment a little bit, differently. Remember, I'm just here to help you do more intense Bible study. Please keep that in mind while we work through everything, and be patient and merciful towards me as well. And if you feel that I've interpreted some specific application of a commandment incorrect, don't worry about it. I can also learn from you. But let's just look at each commandment on its own, trying to find the significance for us in our lives today. For instance, listen, I'm just going to give you one example. One of the most beautiful commandments for me, and maybe you've even never heard about this because you've never read through the 613 commandments ever in your life. But Yahweh commands that if we should let the mother bird go, if we find a nest with eggs on the ground, I mean, that is a commandment, and he will bless you if you find a nest with eggs and a mother bird that fell out of the tree on the grounds. You can take the eggs, but you can't take the mother. You have to let the mother go free. So amazing is this God of ours. I mean, it's beautiful. He allows the mother to go free so she can go and have other babies. Just like in the laws of Nida, the woman will get an egg again the next month. It's beautiful. It's a commandment. Is it something that we are free of? How does the fact that Yeshua died on the cross suddenly makes you free from the commandment that says you must let the mother bird go free? How are you free from that commandment? You are not. He died on the cross so that your sins may be forgiven, because maybe in the past you took the mother bird with the eggs, and now you read the Torah, you see that this is a commandment, you see that you have transgressed it, you repent of your sin, you ask forgiveness, and you receive forgiveness. That is what he died for. Now you can keep the commandment, because now you are under grace. Now you understand the commandment. How beautiful is this Creator? In his commandments, he even thinks about a mother bird. Doesn't Yeshua say in the New Testament, not even a bird will fall out of the tree without God knowing it? Hey? Can you see how God knows even about every single bird? That's why He's telling you, leave the mother. Let her go free. You can take the eggs and have an omelette. But let the mother go. That is my commandment. And if you transgress it, you're under the curse of the law. And you have to repent. But that's my application for that specific commandment. If yours is different, it's fine. We are just studying together. For instance, this commandment of letting the mother go, I think it probably fits under the category of dietary laws. What you can eat and what you can't eat and how you must treat the animals that you're eating. So I think this specific commandment fits under the dietary laws. And I think the dietary laws, if I have to choose one of the 10 commandments, because remember, I promised you, we are looking at the 10 commandments as the headers and the summary of all of His commandments. So the dietary laws for me fits the best under the 4th commandments. But maybe the Jewish sages has this law under another category. Or maybe you think this law regarding the mother bird falls under the 1st commandment. You see, that doesn't matter. I just love the idea that each and every one of the 613 falls amazingly under one of the 10 main categories. And then the 10 main categories falls amazingly under the 2 greatest commandments. Love towards God and love towards other people. So every commandment will be categorized under either one of the 10 commandments and then either under love towards God. This commandment shows you how to love God, or this commandment shows you how to love people. So if I look at this commandment of letting the mother bird go, for me, I put that under loving God. Loving this Creator who made this beautiful bird and these beautiful little eggs. And when I pick up a nest, I'm going to, and I have done it before, I've picked up a nest with eggs and we try and put it back in the tree. I know the mother normally rejects the nest, but we buy eggs in the shop, so we don't take the eggs from the nest. But I've put a nest back in a tree, hoping that the mother will return to a nest and sit on her eggs. And while I was doing that, I was thinking of this commandment, and I was praising God. I was looking at these little eggs, little small speckled eggs, and I just praised my Creator and these eggs, Creator. I just praised Him. So for me, this law falls under loving God, and then under the Shabbat, you must keep Shabbat, the 4th commandment. I don't know why. I don't find another place where this commandment fits best. So Shabbat has got to do with creation, so I put this under Shabbat, for instance. But where we put the specific commandment, under which category, is going to be really interesting, but it's not a law. It's only the way that I understand it. All right. So tomorrow we're going to start with the bondservant. I'm really looking forward to that. Okay, see you tomorrow.